privileged access should never be always on. In this topic, we'll look at how Entra PIM turns role elevation into a controlled, just-in-time process using MFA, approval, time limits, justification, and a clear audit trail. So far, we've built the foundation: why privileged access is risky, how PAM controls reduce that risk, and how Entra PIM supports eligible assignments. Now we move from eligibility to secure activation, making sure elevated access is approved, time-bound, justified, and ready for audit before we expand into Azure resources and groups. An eligible role is not the same as active privilege. Eligibility means a user may request access. Activation controls decide whether that access should become usable right now. Those controls can require MFA, approval, justification, conditional access checks, and a fixed duration. This is where PIM turns an eligible assignment into just-in-time privilege. The result is access that is limited, logged, and easier to review. If an account is misused or compromised, strong activation policies reduce what the user or attacker can do and how long they can do it. The activation process begins when a user requests eligible access, typically through Microsoft Entra or My Roles. PIM checks the role's rules: MFA, justification, ticketing, approval, and maximum duration. This is where policy becomes enforcement. If approval is required, the request waits for a decision. If it is rejected, access never starts. If it is approved, the role becomes active only for the allowed time window. When that window ends, privileges are removed automatically, and the activity is available for audit and investigation. That is just-in-time access with built-in control. Maximum activation duration is one of the simplest ways to limit privileged exposure. The goal is not to make access inconvenient. It is to make access time-bound and appropriate for the task. A global administrator may only need 1 or 2 hours for a planned change, while a help desk role may need a longer window for support queues. The key is to match duration to real operational patterns, not worst-case convenience. Short windows reduce the chance that an active session is misused, but they can also create more reactivation events. Tune durations with your incident response, change management, and support processes in mind. Being signed in should not be enough to receive privileged access. With PIM, the user can be challenged again at the exact moment they activate a role. This extra check helps stop attacks where a password is stolen, a session is hijacked, or the original sign-in was too weak for administrative work. For high-impact roles, make MFA mandatory, not optional. Prefer strong methods, especially phishing-resistant options when available. Also confirm that conditional access policies work cleanly with activation, test the user experience, and document any rare exceptions. Conditional access adds a real-time gate to PIM activation. When a user requests privileged access, Azure evaluates signals such as identity, device health, location, application, and sign-in risk. The policy then decides whether to grant access, require extra controls, or block the attempt. For example, activation might require a compliant device, a trusted network, or phishing-resistant MFA. Risk-based rules can step up verification for unusual behavior and stop high-risk requests. Test these policies carefully and exclude or protect break-glass accounts so emergency administration remains available. Activation context turns a privileged access event from a basic log entry into auditable evidence. For every activation, you want to answer 5 questions. Who requested access, and which identity or role was involved? What privilege was activated, at what scope, and with which permissions? When did it happen, from where, on what device, and for how long? And most importantly, why was access needed? A ticket, change request, or business justification connects the action to an approved purpose. When these details are captured consistently, investigations, compliance checks, and access reviews become faster and more defensible. Approval workflows add a human checkpoint before sensitive access becomes active. A user requests a privileged role and provides the key context: what role they need, why they need it, the environment, duration, and often a ticket reference. PIM routes that request to an approver, who reviews the justification, validates the business need, and considers risk and impact. If approved, the role activates for the requested time. If denied, access is blocked. Either way, the decision is logged, creating accountability while balancing security with operational speed. Choose approvers who can make an informed access decision, not just someone nearby in the reporting chain. A strong approver understands the role's risk, knows why the access is needed, is available to respond quickly, and has authority to approve. Avoid the requester, peers who cannot challenge the request, or stakeholders who are inactive or routinely unavailable. For high-risk roles, use multiple approvers or a trained owner group to support backup coverage and segregation of duties. Review approver lists regularly so they continue to match teams, roles, and responsibilities. An approval workflow only works when every request reaches the right reviewer and leads to a clear decision. Notifications should use channels people actually monitor, such as email and portal alerts. The approver then checks the full context: who is asking, their role, requested scope, duration, business justification, and the linked ticket or change record. If the purpose, timing, or evidence does not hold up, reject it rather than approve by assumption. If the request is urgent or the approver is unavailable, escalation rules should route it quickly without bypassing governance. This keeps decisions prompt, consistent, and auditable. A justification requirement turns privileged access from a simple request into accountable evidence. The requester should explain what task they are performing, which system is involved, why the business needs it, and what outcome is expected. Need admin or doing maintenance is not enough, because an approver cannot judge risk from that. A strong entry might reference an approved change, the affected production gateway, and the specific policy update. That level of detail helps approvers decide confidently. Later, it helps auditors, investigators, and access reviewers understand exactly why access was activated. Privileged access should not appear as an isolated event. Each activation should point back to an approved ticket, incident, problem, or change record, with a clear ID such as CHG or INC. That reference explains why access was needed, who approved it, and what scope was authorized. During incident response or audit review, teams can connect the PIM log to the business process instead of relying on memory. For high-risk production work, require a valid record before activation, and define who validates the format, status, and ownership. A secure activation policy is not one-size-fits-all. Start by tiering roles by blast radius. For high-risk roles, require the full set of controls: short activation windows, MFA, strict conditional access, approval, justification, and a ticket or change reference. For medium-risk roles, keep MFA and justification. Then decide on approval and access conditions based on environment sensitivity. For lower-risk admin roles, do not leave access standing. Keep activation time-bound and auditable. Finally, treat the baseline as living policy. Review incidents, audit findings, and operator feedback. Then tighten or relax controls deliberately. Secure activation is where eligible access becomes controlled privilege. PIM reduces risk with time limits, MFA, conditional access, and contextual checks. For sensitive roles, approvals add governance. Justifications and tickets make each activation traceable to real work. Next, we'll extend these patterns to Azure resources and privileged access groups, then cover alerts, audits, reviews, and operations.